Good morning, everyone. Welcome back in the Fierce Leader Facebook group. If you're here for the first time or just joined, just let me know that I can greet you and welcome you properly. And if you're coming back, then I'm glad to see you again. I was reading a newsletter about negotiation tactics and communication around negotiation. And when we use the word negotiation, we think about business. When we use the word negotiation, we think about making a deal. But I feel it's a lot more than just this. It's also every time, if you have children, you have to negotiate an outcome. The bedtime or the meals or the activities. When you have teenagers, the same. You have to negotiate a lot. When you have clients, you're maybe negotiating prices. But when you're having friends and you want to organize vacation, you're also negotiating the destination or the budget or whatever it is, you're negotiating all the time when you interact with people. So if you think negotiation is something that is going to interest something is going to interest someone you know, just let them know we have this conversation here. Because I think I will talk about it again. I will probably get into the topic deeper and deeper, and so I will talk about it again. When I do mediations, and the mediations I've done in the past, very often I had the frustration that I was understanding the person. Usually within 10 minutes, 20 minutes, the people, I'm a total stranger to them, and yet they're talking to me. They're talking to me, telling me their whole life, and they're telling me how they feel. They're telling me why it's a problem, what's going on, and they're telling me everything. And so I have to kind of refocus the discussion for them. But the frustration usually comes when I'm here for them. I understand where they come from. I understand how they feel. And I acknowledge how they feel because I don't judge. I don't know their whole story. I don't know their experiences. I don't know their 30 years life, 40, 50 years before coming in the mediation session. I don't know what's going on. So I can't judge their reaction today because their reaction today is probably influenced by X many years of living experiences. However, I always wonder, well, if I understand them, if I acknowledge them, if I'm here for them, if I moderate the conversation for them, why is it that they're still closing on collaboration? And so what I understood and what I feel is that actually what matters even more is not just I understand, but that the person they have a problem with understand where they come from. And so that I, as a mediator, as I moderate the conversation and as I create this safe space for them to express how they feel and what they want, is for both of them to come to a place where they can understand each other. And I feel that's where the negotiation can really happen, and coming from a place of defensiveness to a place of collaboration is because we create the space. I create the space for them to start moving forward, to start expressing how they feel and express what they need and what they want. But then what is important, and what I feel a lot of time the missing piece is that they both understand each other. They both drop their defensive mechanism to be able to understand where the other person comes from. Because that's what is more important, is that the person they're in conflict with at some point also understand their point of view. Now, why it's blocking very often, and I feel it's blocking in a lot of conflict and it's blocking in a lot of disagreement, is that people believe that if they understand something they disagree with, that means they validate that point of view, but they disagree with. And so that creates an internal conflict of, well, I don't want to agree with that because I think it's wrong. And yet, if I validate it, then I kind of give it space to exist, but I think it's wrong. And so that creates that kind of friction inside where believing something that is not right for them, that is not true to them, yet validating it doesn't work. And so I feel it's important to reframe what understanding someone means and what acknowledging someone's feeling on someone's point of view and story and perspective means. Because understanding and acknowledging it doesn't mean we understand and doesn't mean we validate it. It means we give it space to exist. We acknowledge that can be a diversity of truth, that can be a paradox, that can be different potential outcomes we don't necessarily agree with. And so I feel it's important, and today more than ever, to see that there is actually different truth that can exist, that can coexist. And so in today's society where we have a lot of crisis around different topics, I talked about in my newsletter lately, finding online a lot of debate videos around different topics such as immigration, gender identity, abortion, a lot of topics that creates a lot of conflict in society that people don't really talk about because the opinions are so rooted, so strong that it can really escalate quickly. But it's escalating only if we don't acknowledge that there is maybe different truth, that there is dualities in opinions that can actually exist. And I feel many people still try to get things, either it's right or it's wrong. And we have this opposite black or white thing going on in a lot of topics, in a lot of things. And so the problem with this mindset, with this thinking, it's not a bad thinking to say there's right things and there's wrong things, because living as a society, we need the structure in your own family. If you want to live together in the same house, you need certain ground rules, you need certain structure that everybody can flourish together, that it's not anarchy living all together. So very certain things to moderate and have this frame to create the safe space. However, what I feel is that it's a balance to find between that structure and acknowledging that a lot of duality can exist, acknowledging that different truths can exist. And so I feel negotiation can really happen only when people release their expectation that what they believe has to be true for everybody. Because if it's not true for everybody, that means then maybe they're wrong, but they can be wrong. And so there is this kind of tension where I have to find, I'm the hero of my own story. So if I'm a hero, they're the villain. And if they're the villain, then they're wrong and I'm right. And I have to let them know they're wrong, and I have to convince them that I'm right. And so there is this tension around that. But if they drop that, if we drop the expectation that we have to be right, that our belief is a right one, then we just acknowledge that there is things that we don't comprehend right away, things we don't understand right away. There is things that are out of our range. And there is a thing that we don't need to exactly understand the whole concept. We just acknowledge it's not our own truth, it's not our own belief. And there is diversity, there is paradox, there is miss the word, just lost the word. There is all those dualities that exist that we don't necessarily know. that we don't necessarily comprehend. And when we at least acknowledge that we all can have different point of view, all can have different perspective that seems true to each of us individually, then we can start to either agree, we validate some of them, or we compromise, or we just let go of what we don't understand and we don't spend our energy on that. But negotiation can really happen when we acknowledge that, and then if we want to compromise, it's where negotiation really happens. And I feel in the mediations where it was hard for the clients to agree on something, it's because they were not understanding that they could not comprehend that there's different truths possible. But because they were in that victim mindset or persecutor mindset, and they have to either be the hero of the story or the villain of the story, but they can't be the villain, because if there's a villain, that means they're wrong. So they have to find a villain somewhere else, and that's gonna be the other person, the one they're in conflict with. And if they're in that mindset, they're not ready to compromise, they're not ready to negotiate. There is no real progress. So I'll talk more about negotiation. I think that's a very fascinating topic. I think that's everything in life is negotiation, and people confuse negotiating with manipulating people. It's very different. I feel when we're able to negotiate, we're entering a space of connection. When we're able to negotiate, we're entering a space where we can really build relationships, we can communicate at a different level, go deeper in understanding. And understanding, negotiation is not about what I want, it's about what the other person wants. Let me understand what you want. Let me understand what you want and why you want it, and let me see how I can give you what you want without sacrificing what I need. So I'll dive deeper into that for sure. More videos are coming. In the meantime, right now, all the clarity call, the clarity call, the basic clarity call, VIP clarity call of about 2 hours, 1.5 hours, is about $343. If you want to go deeper, you also have the option to have a 2 months coverage with clarity call, or 4 months coverage, I think, with about 10 sessions. And so the price increase with that. But if you know that there's things you need clarity on, if you know that there is tensions and you're trying to get an outcome you don't have right now, and you need to negotiate something, you need to have need to have a discussion with someone to improve a situation, then the basic clerical, VIP clerical of 1.5 hour is what you may look at. The podcast is always here for you. And over the summer, I'm doing all the master classes. They're gonna be available until end of the summer. I don't know what I'll do with it yet. After that, Facebook is deleting them after 30 days. I'll keep the videos anyway, and I'll see what I do with them after that. But at the end of the summer, by September, all videos will be deleted. So if you need to catch up, it's time to catch up. I'll talk to you soon, and in the meantime, I wish you a good day. Bye.